Hi, in this video I'm going to do some revision for English Language Paper 1. I'm using the June 2017 Rosabel paper. I'm going to remind you how I think the best and most efficient way to do the exam is in terms of timing, and then I'm going to give you some specific advice for each of the key questions in these videos for paper 1, and then I'll do paper 2 as well. So the image here is of a lemon being juiced, and that's the metaphor I use as the most basic way for analyzing language, which is what question 2 is inviting you to do. And I'd like you to think about that image as a way of thinking about squeezing the meaning, analyzing individual words. But before we do that, let's remind ourselves what it is that we're doing in this paper. So it's really crucial that you understand the timing and the skills for every question. The AQA designs the paper so there's 15 minutes to read, but unless you're a very efficient annotator and know exactly what you're doing, this can be a very inefficient way to do the exam. I would recommend you do it differently. I would recommend that you don't read the entire source until you get to question 3. So what you do is with question 1, you get a certain range. I'm not going to review question 1 because it's so meaningless. You just need to know how to do it, which is it's 4 marks. You spend about 4 minutes on it. And what you're doing is you're extracting key information. The question we're looking at today is language analysis, and it's 8 marks, and you should spend about 12 minutes on it. And you should look to analyze 2 to 3 times. I've said in the past paragraphs, but you may see you don't exactly need entire paragraphs. What you should be emphasizing is the analysis of language and commenting on the effects of devices. And that's a really important base skill that will help you for the rest of the exam. Question 3 is when you should read the entire source. It's only worth 8 marks. It's the same as question 2, but you have to do a lot more, and it's a really confusing question that gives students a lot of trouble. I would call it a trap question, and so what I mean by that is don't let it distract you. And in the video on question 3, structural analysis, I can go into some more detail. Question 4 is the big question. If you notice, questions 1, 2, and 3 added together equal question 4. That's evaluate, and that's the one you really need to spend time on thinking about and improving. And what we're doing today with language analysis is essential, but really the whole exam, all of question 1 to 4 added up together equals question 5, the creative writing question. It's the question that you should practice the most, that there's a lot of ways to improve. There's a lot of ways to do really well, and it's the way that you will guarantee passing or getting mastery towards those upper level marks. But that's not what we're going to look at today. What we're going to look at today is question 2, language analysis. What does language analysis mean? Now, in the exam, part of what I'm trying to persuade you with, why you don't need to necessarily read the whole source before you do questions 1 and 2, they give you very specific ranges for the question. So in question 2 here, if you'll notice, they've given you this box already, so you don't need to read the whole source. You're being asked to focus on this very specific part of the extract. The first step I always do is I tell students to find out what is exactly the question. What is the focus of the question that you're being asked to work on? And that is Rosabel's bus journey home is what we're going to look at. And I'm going to read this, and we're going to try and get 3 or 4 key quotations, and we're going to mark them because that's very important. What I do is what I'd like you to do when you're doing this revision. Rosabel looked out the windows. The streets was blurred and misty, but light striking on the panes turned the dullness to opal and silver, and the jeweler's shops seen through this were fairy glasses. So that's a really great first quotation. You get this emphasis of something from dullness transforms to something else. I'm already circling the words that I think are really important. Fairy palaces, metaphor. Her feet were horribly wet, and she knew the bottom of her skirt and petticoat would be coated with black, greasy mud. Disgusting. her journey home is not good. There was a sickening smell of warm humanity. It seemed to be oozing out of everyone on the bus. Smell of warm humanity, disgusting. Oozing. Star 3. And everybody had the same expression, sitting so still, staring in front of them. Rosabel stirred suddenly and unfastened the 2 top buttons of her coat. She felt almost stifled. I think we could use stifled as well. Through her half-closed eyes, the whole row of people on the opposite seat seemed to resolve into one meaningless, staring face. I think these 2 together could be my 4th quotation. But essentially what I've done is the first step, which is kind of question 1, which is I've extracted relevant information. Without extracting evidence, it's impossible to do effective language analysis. Language analysis is asking us to get evidence that is relevant to this question. Language analysis further is asking us to get evidence that's rich in imagery and in a sense that there's something going on in the language, that it's not just simply and or the or something very flat and banal, that there's something in the language that's engaging us. So AQA gives some advanced help in what exactly is meant by language analysis. And here I can just go through these ideas. What is being described? What are the specific details? What is the symbolic significance? What do these words hold for me? What does the phrase or image remind me of? And so what? So what is the most advanced? Why is this important? But some key things that I'd want you to think about is it's important to explain what the quote is. It's important to zoom into key words and squeeze them for meaning. Squeezing the lemon, that's the metaphor I invite you to use. An advanced one is to think about, what does this mean to you? And if a device is used, can you say what its effect is? Another advanced way of doing it would be to think about the effects as you responding personally. So again, the first step you do is you find the focus of the question, you read the passage, you get at least four relevant quotations, and then what you do is you start to analyze the language. I've given you some exercises with the revision. If you just look at here, the first quotation moves from dullness to opal to silver. The jeweler's shops were fairy palaces. I've tried to put in bold the key words that I think I'd focus on. Dullness for me suggests boredom, weariness, a horrible life. Silver is a contrast to the boringness, and it suggests wealth and something shiny and magical and important. And this is supported by the metaphor. Fairy palaces emphasizes fantasies of the character in contrast to her brutal life. I think we could, if you wanted to, analyze fairy more, and you could analyze palaces more and squeeze that language of its meaning and its suggestiveness to help analyze the language here. Now, it's important for AQA, but generally for language analysis, that you have a wide variety, rich, relevant variety of evidence, but you don't need to analyze every single word in every single quotation. It's better to say a lot about the most relevant as opposed to scattergunning and trying to analyze everything. But if you could get 4 quotations and try to analyze or squeeze the lemon at least 4 times, if you could get at least 3 devices and talk about the effects, you're in a really good place for this question. We have some other examples here. Petticoat coated with black greasy mud. That's really disgusting. If I would really, greasy reminds me of something disgusting. Dirt, dirty, filthy. The imagery is one of her journey being, it makes me think of how oppressive this journey is, how badly it smells, and how it affects her. It makes me think how there are long-term effects on her. That imagery repulses me, makes me think she hates her journey. Sickening smell of warm humanity oozing. Everybody had the same expression. Oozing, spilling out. Oozing makes me think of something leaking. Oozing is getting everywhere. Sickening, you could analyze. The smell of humanity is something you could think about. That would be a device that you could think about its effects on you. Stifled the whole row, resolved into a meaningless, staring face. What does it mean to her that what does meaningless mean? What does this suggest about her journey home? What does the idea that she knows no one, how does that help us think about her journey home? What does it make you personally feel about what she's going through? You'll notice that if you can use the AQA questions, it can always get you to spurn yourself to keep writing. Could you, after you've quoted, explain the quote? Could you zoom into keywords and squeeze the lemon? And I invite you to squeeze it 3 times, because it's often on the 3rd time that you actually find some meaning that's really important. It's really important that you get some kind of device and comment on the effect. How does it make you personally feel? And if you wanted to do a really basic construction of a paragraph, you could use what I have previously referred to as peewee. Some people talk about pezzle. These are old phrases that are, for me, are really quite antiquated, but they can help you because they'll help you write something in the exam. You've got the evidence, don't you? You have that because you've marked star 1 to 4. You can zoom in to keywords and squeeze that lemon. That's analysis. You can explain, of course. You can expand by using those AQA questions. You can think about device, effect, and you can think about personal response. Now, if you wanted to, you really want to make sure you're answering the question in your topic sentence, in your point, in your first sentence. I prefer topic sentence nowadays. But can I tell you, it's not really needed. What you need to do is focus on the language analysis. So to just finish off, for paper 1, question 2, when we're analyzing language, make sure you're not just, I'm going to go through the don'ts first, mistakes that people make. Just make sure you're not just jumping in and labeling, oh, there's a simile, there's a verb, there's a noun. That's what I'm seeing a lot at the school, without talking about its effect on you. What you're not doing is inferring on content, which is kind of a question 1 thing, and just making empty explanations. This is all advice from AQA. It makes me want to read on. It puts a picture in my head. Why does it make you want to read on? What is the picture in your head? That's what you should be answering. As I said, you should try to get at least 2 or 3 rich and relevant phrases. Do zoom into those keywords and squeeze the lemon. Explain and analyze their effects. Device and effect is much more powerful. And if you wanted to, for AQA, they like you to link the analysis to what's going on in the passage as a whole, though I really don't think that's necessarily needed, given that it's only 8 marks. Okay, I hope that revision helped. Please do try and write this response yourself when you have a chance. Thanks.